Millennials have earned the reputation of reshaping industries and institutions, shaking up the workplace, transforming dating culture, and rethinking parenthood. They've also had a major impact on how Americans view religious life. According to research from the Pew Research Center, it found that 4 in 10 millennials say that they are religiously unaffiliated. In fact, the study also found that Americans between the ages of 23 and 38 are now more likely to say that they have no religion at all, rather than identifying as a Christian or a Catholic. In the early years for John Follis, he was heavily devoted to his church and actively contributing to that community. However, as he grew older, he found himself transitioning away from his religious beliefs and teachings as a child, and he discovered that others were doing the same. So this veteran ad agency executive was compelled and inspired to create a film on the subject, which he did in 2017, entitled Leaving God. Follis joined me this week to discuss the film in greater detail, his own religious beliefs, and how his veteran experience in marketing and ad generation has contributed to the way he views his professional life. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's this conversation. Follis was fired a total of 4 times in 7 years. Thus, we began our discussion by talking about perseverance, overcoming obstacles, and how he used that experience of rejection to experience his own version of prosperity.
Yeah, well, for those who are getting this podcast via audio and didn't see what I just did, when Kevin said, I understand you've been fired a couple of times, I held up my hand and put up my 4 fingers. I haven't been fired a couple of times. I've been fired 4 times. And not just 4 times, but 4 times in 7 years. So that's a lot of time to be fired in that period of time. And it wasn't easy, especially after that 4th time, to pick myself up, dust myself off, and try to convince myself that I still could be successful pursuing my chosen field, which was advertising. You know, it's pretty demoralizing just getting fired once or twice, but that 3rd and 4th time were really, really tough, but I managed to do it. And one thing led to another, and eventually I did end up starting my own ad agency, which in a very short period of time became very successful. We were actually the 2nd most award-winning agency in New York City at one point, and did a lot of award-winning work. I was actually selected as one of the 12 best advertising guys in New York.
And what do you think you've learned through that experience about the value of perseverance there, John?
That it's not easy. It's really, really not easy. And it really forces you to answer some very difficult questions. Like, in my case, and I can only speak for my case, is do I really have the talent that I think I have to be successful in this career? I was on the creative side of advertising. I did both art direction and copywriting. And that was the question that I was asking myself. And I wasn't sure of the answer after the fourth time. I thought I had talent. I believed I had talent, but after getting fired that many times in that many years, you can't help but question whether or not you're really, it's hard to be objective. That's all I can say. It's really hard to be objective about your own talent and ability when it seems like the universe is telling you something else. But in my case, I really didn't have a plan B. I was committed to my career, and I really didn't have an alternative to pursuing advertising. So I just continued along that path. And like I said, one thing led to another. I just tried to take it one day at a time. I realized that's all you can do is get out of bed, get dressed, and try to get work.
Yeah, well, you've certainly turned the corner because I know that you've had the unique experience of being honored by both the White House and the UN body. So I'm curious to ask you about how those experiences gave you the proper perspective on how you look at your life and how you approach every day.
Yeah. It was pretty mind-blowing to open up a letter in the mail that had the White House as the return address and not think that it was bogus. As the creative director of a New York ad agency, you get hit on a lot by aspiring creative people who are trying to get your attention so they can get interviewed by you and have you take a look at their portfolio. So you get all kinds of stuff in the mail with that goal in mind. So when I got this envelope with the White House as a return address, I thought, well, this is a clever idea that someone just did, until I opened it and realized it was an actual invitation to the White House because of some very successful national TV public service work that we had done. Throughout my career, I've always made it a priority to try to make time to do public service work for causes that I believe in. And in this case, it was for child abuse prevention. And our agency had been invited to do a series of TV spots, a campaign to create awareness for child abuse prevention. So we were working with the National Committee for the Prevention of Child Abuse, which is based in Chicago. But the channel for these commercials was the NBA. The NBA had agreed to donate $5 million worth of their TV time during the NBA playoffs. And this was back in 1991. So $5 million worth of airtime in 91 is probably worth twice that today. So these spots ran during the NBA playoffs, which was maybe, I don't know, a month, 3 weeks. So they were seen a lot. And apparently they were seen by someone at the White House or affiliated with the White House who decided that my partner and I should be, this was when George Bush was president, and Barbara Bush had a program called the 1,000 Points of Light, which was a program to honor people around the country that they felt were what they considered a point of light, who were doing some kind of public service work that was helping society. So somehow I got on the radar and was invited to be honored as a point of light with a bunch of other people. It wasn't just me, it was a group of us. But nevertheless, it was pretty mind blowing to open up that envelope and realize that you were being acknowledged and invited to the White House to be honored for the work that you had done. It was pretty exciting. And then it wasn't long thereafter, Kevin, that I received another invitation, this time from the United Nations, for something that was actually for the same cause, but totally different. It was an independent print ad that I had done that won a big award. And because it won an award, somehow, again, the United Nations had just started a new program where they were acknowledging what they considered exceptional public service work. And in this case, it was a print ad. So I was one of the first, or one of the recipients that first year that the United Nations offered a public service award. And so later that same year that I went to the White House, I was invited to the UN to receive that award.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've sort of evolved. I know you created a film called Believing God that also explores religion, and it also puts into perspective your own life. So I'm wondering if you can tell me about the film.
Yeah, so I'm not a filmmaker, but for the past 20 years, I've been dabbling with digital video. I think ever since Apple came out with iMovie, which was the late 90s, I just loved playing around with creating little films, mostly advertising related. Initially it was strictly related to my ad agency. So I would do this for clients, basically 30-second or 60-second commercials that were done at my desktop promoting their product or service. But as time went on and my skills developed, I realized that I could get a little bit more involved with some of these videos, and I could start doing some longer format videos and tell little stories on pretty much any subject I wanted to talk about. In the 2010s, I guess it was around 2012, something called explainer videos became popular, and that's where a lot of marketing companies and video production companies were offering these little animated videos that would, in 2 or 3 minutes, help companies explain whatever their product or service was through these videos. And I got involved with that. And then shortly after that, I started switching gears and focusing on more personal things. And one of the things that I had always fantasized about was doing a documentary. I just really didn't have anything that I thought was worthy of doing a documentary on until I came across some interesting research done on the fact that so many Americans now are leaving religion and even leaving their belief in God. And because I consider myself one of those people, I thought, and because it was such a major cultural shift that was currently happening, I thought it might make an interesting subject for a documentary. So in 2017, with the skills I had acquired making these digital videos, I attempted to make a documentary, not thinking that, or not being convinced that I could do it, but I figured, let me give it a shot. So I just put my heart and soul into it. And a few minutes later, I had a documentary that I submitted to some film festivals. And much to my surprise, it was accepted at a bunch of them, including the Hollywood International Documentary Film Festival, where I was awarded Best First-Time Filmmaker.
Well, congratulations on that. And I'm wondering your thoughts on the cultural impact that you're hoping the film makes? Because I know it's been seen by over 40,000 people worldwide through a number of different platforms. So tell me, what sort of cultural impact do you hope the film will make?
Uh, I just, as a creative person, um, get excited about sharing my work. I think anyone who paints wants their paintings to be seen and admired. Anyone who writes wants their writing to be appreciated. Anyone who performs music wants to have an audience. And as someone who created this documentary film on a topic that I think is very topical and relevant right now, I just want people to watch it. So as far as the impact I'm hoping to make, I don't really know, other than the fact that I'm getting invited on a lot of podcasts to talk about it, which is kind of cool.
And what do you, in terms of the mission of the film, what were you hoping the overall arching message was?
Well, with a title like Leaving God, the immediate reaction from a lot of people, and certainly a lot of people who are Christians or believers, they're going to react very negatively because they're going to assume that it's a film that's disparaging God or telling people they shouldn't believe in God in some way or form. And that's not what the film is about. The subtext of the film, the subtitle is Why So Many Americans Are Leaving God, Including Me. So it's really an investigative report based on several years of research and using respected qualitative research sources documenting what's been happening in the US really in the past 15 or 20 years, and has been really picking up speed in the last 5 years, which is people leaving traditional religion and detaching from their belief in God. And weaved in with that investigative reporting on that cultural shift, I also included my personal story. As someone who grew up, like many Americans, with a pretty strong faith, I grew up Catholic. I went to Catholic school, and I was pretty programmed into the Catholic religion. And even during my adult years, was very involved with the church. When I lived in New York for 20 years, I was an active member of a Protestant church in New York. But despite that, over time, I just decided that my perceptions and beliefs of God and religion were not what they used to be. And I've got to the point where I no longer believe in a supernatural being and a lot of the things I was taught to believe. So I just made the film with the hope that people would watch it and find it interesting because it's relevant. And the thing about the subject is, I don't care whether you believe in God or not. God is one of those things that touches almost everyone on some level, right? So I figured for that reason that it might have an audience. And again, I had no distribution channel. I just put it up on YouTube and Vimeo, and nothing really happened for the first few months. And suddenly, almost overnight, it started getting thousands of views. And I didn't know what was the reason for that until I looked at the analytics and found out that all the views it was getting was from a website called topdocumentaryfilms.com. I didn't even know the website existed, but when I checked out the website, on the main page of the website was my film with a great review. And I was blown away. I have no idea how they found the film, but because they did find it and posted it on their website with a great review, it was starting to get tons of views. And I found out that their website gets something like 1.5 million views every month. So that's why it's now gotten up to over 36,000 views from 98 countries around the world. So that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know before you made the film, you created an ad campaign that was sort of selling God. So I'm curious about the transformational shift you made from wanting to do this ad campaign to where you are today. Talk about it for me and how you arrived at where you are today as well.
Yeah. Well, as I said, many people have gone the path that I have where they were raised religion and then over time have decided to step away from it. But I thought one of the stories that might make mine particularly interesting is what you just mentioned, because as I mentioned, I was very involved with a big church in New York. It was called the Marble Collegiate Church. And after being a member for about 10 years or so, I got on the radar screen of the head minister, who found out that I ran the successful award-winning ad agency. And he wanted to talk to me because his board of directors had just approved a budget of $150,000 to put into advertising. So he wanted to know if I was interested in coming up with a proposal to tell him how he should spend $150,000 in an ad campaign in New York. So that's how I got involved with it for the church. And it wasn't pro bono. He said he would be willing to pay any ad agency. And I was not the only ad agency that was being considered. I know he was talking to other ones as well. So I didn't assume I would get it. But in order to try to get him excited about working with our ad agency, I decided to not just show a media marketing plan, but also come up with some creative ideas that might get him excited. So that's what I did. And I showed him some ads that were actually a little bit out of the ordinary. I didn't think that he would be necessarily comfortable running some of the ads that I came up with, but much to my surprise, he approved it and ran the campaign, which was on subway cars in New York. Some subway cars and some billboards around the city. And $150,000 sounds like a lot of money, but it's really not a lot of money in a city like New York. But because it was for a 3-month period, it was enough money to get the ads seen by quite a few people. And as a result, it got written up in the New York Times, Time Magazine, USA Today, and ended up drawing a lot of people to the church. So it was very successful. And I ended up, what initially started as just that one project for 3 months ended up being a relationship with the church for 16 years.
And John, I'm curious to ask you, since this documentary film was such a success, do you plans to maybe do another one, or how do you hope to capitalize on the momentum of this film?
The answer to your first question is no. I have no interest in making another film. I'm a creative guy, so I'm always looking for ways to express my creativity. But that was because it was such a personal, or I should say, part of the film that talked about my experience was such a personal thing. That was one of my motivations, I think, for doing this. I felt that I had a story to share, and that this might be an interesting way to share it. So I have, and it took a lot of work, a lot of time and energy to make this. When I do things, I'm kind of a perfectionist, so I want them to be as good as possible. So there's nothing else that I really feel interested in or passionate enough about to justify me doing it again, which doesn't mean it couldn't happen at some point. But right now, I don't have any other interest to do that. But what I'm interested in doing now, Kevin, is exactly what you and I are doing right now, because making it and putting it up on the internet is one thing. Getting people to see it is a whole nother challenge. So right now, my focus, and 36,000 people is great, but I want to have 36 million people watch it. So for that to happen, short of getting it on Netflix or HBO or PBS, I have to do whatever I can using my marketing skills to try to get more people to watch it. And one of the ways to do that is talking on podcasts.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me, how can people watch the film?
Well, hopefully you'll put a link to it somewhere on this podcast.
Absolutely, yeah.
But in addition to that, they can just type the name of the film into Google, and it should come up. The name of the film is Leaving God, and it would probably help if you put the word film or documentary as well. But I put in Leaving God, and it came up. So if you type up Leaving God film or Leaving God documentary, it'll definitely come up.
And tell me, John, finally, if you had to classify how you wanted your personal or professional language to be defined, how would you want that to be remembered?
Someone who made a positive difference, I think. That's actually something I've been thinking about a lot lately, because I just turned 67 last year, and who knows how many more years I have left. So I'd like to touch as many people as possible in as positive a way as possible. So in addition to doing things like making documentary films about what's happening in our culture right now when it comes to religion and God, I'm also doing some volunteer work in various areas. I was, for a couple of years during the pandemic, I was via Zoom teaching English as a second language to a lot of mostly Latin immigrants. And that was satisfying. And I've done a number of other volunteer related things as well that help people. So it's very important for me to use my time as productively as I can. And I feel like, because I've been very fortunate in my life to give back as much as possible. But I also like to, I think, when it comes to the subject of my documentary, I think I want to challenge people to think about their beliefs. And if they watch my film and still believe in their religion and God, that's fine with me. My goal is not to convince them of anything. My goal is only to challenge them to think about the things that are determining how they live their life. And if my film gets them to reevaluate that and think differently, great. And if it reinforces the things they already believe, that's great too. But I think it's important for everyone to challenge the things that they are taught to believe growing up. Because, at least in my case, some of the things that I was taught to believe as a child, I've decided no longer work well in my life as an adult.
And finally, John, tell me if people want to get connected with you personally, what's the best way they can do that?
Um, well, maybe you could put another link on your site to I think, well, there's through the some of the interfaces of where the film is being shown, there are ways that people can respond, can leave comments and things like that. So I think there's the ability there to go ahead and contact me, or they can find me on LinkedIn as well. Reach out to me there. My name is John Follis. It's spelled Follis. So certainly reach out via LinkedIn.
Fantastic. Well, John, I really enjoyed engaging in conversation with you today, Bonnie, and I want to thank you for being here this afternoon. It's most appreciated.
Well, thank you, Kevin. I really appreciate the opportunity.